And good evening. We do have our 8th named storm of the Atlantic season. What had been a very slow start to the busiest month, September, is kind of ramping up toward the end. We already had Gabrielle, which is still a a hurricane as it continues in the North Atlantic, but we now have Tropical Storm Humberto. Now, at the moment, it is getting better organized, and you see those flare up of thunderstorms very near the center of circulation, so it's already starting fairly healthy, and it seems like, at least in the near term, we're not going to see this thing explode in strength. However, it could do so as we head into the weekend and early next week. I also start a little bit wider because this is our other area that we're watching. That is the Invest 94. It may be a struggle for the next several days, whereas Humberto will likely start increasing in strength. Now, at the latest, winds are 40 miles an hour, but with that closed circulation, thunderstorms well established, Hurricane Center went ahead and upgraded this from an Invest. Now, the forecasted track, again, near term, we're not expecting it to just explode in strength. However, we could be borderline hurricane by Friday and definitely on into the weekend. Also something to keep in mind, whereas you see the max intensity per the Hurricane Center as a Category 2, we saw from Gabrielle, the intensity forecasts tend not to be as accurate, and we have seen some of the modeling indicate this will likely be a stronger storm. It is possible that what could become our 3rd hurricane of the season could also become our 3rd major hurricane of the season, and that is definitely on the table as it continues to the west of Bermuda. Now, hopefully, like Gabrielle, the core of the storm stays away from the island. The difference, Gabrielle was on the east side, so that kept the worst part of the storm well removed from the island. This is going to be a little bit different. This is going to take, while the core of the storm stays offshore potentially, it would put the worst side closer to Bermuda. So conditions over the island will likely be worse with Humberto than they were with Gabrielle. And also, if we do consider a major hurricane off the East Coast, the surf and the wave action along the eastern seaboard would be much worse as well. Again, with the outlook being Gabrielle moving away in Humberto, we're going to kind of focus on maybe the wild card being Invest 94, because with these two systems so close together, there is a lot that could happen, and the models are not in perfect agreement with their future. Maybe a little bit more certainty with Humberto, but kind of struggling with the future of our Invest. So let's see what happens. This is just a look at the euro, and again, granted, this is just one model. I'm also showing you the forecast plot of where the models think the storm is going to go. Keep in mind, it's kind of centered over Puerto Rico at the moment. There are thunderstorms all over the northeastern Caribbean. But if that center continues over the very mountainous Hispaniola, it is possible that once it traverses over Hispaniola, the mountains rip it apart and there is nothing left of it. So we will have to see Friday and on into the weekend if it is able to survive this passage over the island. And it is looking more and more certain that this will continue on a westerly track, taking it right over the island. Obviously, if it stays a little bit more north or south, it would avoid the mountainous terrain and may have a better chance of trying to maybe organize a little bit sooner. This still does not look to be a threat for Florida, thankfully, as it does look like the upper troughing that we're going to experience this weekend will keep this well offshore. Maybe very close, maybe almost a little too close for comfort for folks in South Florida, but it has been a fairly solid forecast recently. But again, we will see, because Humberto is also going to do a little bit of tugging on the storm, maybe keeping it a little bit farther offshore. Either way, it's going to be a rainmaker, whether it's organized or not, for the Bahamas as it does start moving northward. This is on Sunday. An increasingly strong Humberto may continue to intensify. Then as we get toward early to middle of next week, this is where it starts to become very interesting with the future. Humberto starts to get drawn northward by an upper trough and quickly moving away. It almost looks like the euro has our second feature trying to follow close behind it, but then getting left beside it, or left away, and it just sits over the kind of part of the Atlantic between Bermuda and the East Coast. And that's what the Euro's been saying. The GFS, contradictory, has nothing forming. It actually has what energy is there with Invest 94 kind of getting absorbed by Humberto and nothing ever forming, so nothing gets left behind. It also kind of indicates that that system just gets drawn northward into the North Atlantic by the middle to end of next week. Here's the model comparison of the GFS in red and the euro in green. Notice the euro has Humberto very strong, an intensifying Invest as maybe a tropical storm. As we head head into Monday. Note the Euro, or excuse me, the GFS in red. Red is, or GFS is not indicating anything from this tropical wave as that kind of energy just gets absorbed with Humberto. The Euro, however, kind of indicates there may be some pull from the storm, but it gets left behind. Be interested to see if that actually happens. Usually there is some interaction with these systems, especially when they're so close together, whether or not we call the Fujiwara effect, where actually one kind of spins around the other, or the energy is absorbed by the stronger one, which would be Humberto. So kind of interesting that the Euro is not indicating that occurring, considering the fact that the Euro is also indicating that those two systems are going to be very, very close together. Here's kind of a rough idea of the steering and why this disturbance may just get left behind. Again, if it tries to develop. At the moment, Humberto is very close to this ridge of high pressure. So this in the near term is what is guiding it along. Ridge starts to kind of build a little bit more to the west and start to sink south, and that's when the turn starts to happen. At the same time, we're going to have this upper troughing along the east coast. That is a broad area of low pressure, and that may start to draw Invest 94 a little bit closer to the east coast. Here comes this big upper level trough I had mentioned. This is going to draw Humberto north. It's interesting that even the Euro is indicating there is a little bit of tug of this system from the troughing, but then the troughing kind of leaves it behind, and then there is no steering currents as we head toward the latter part of next week and on into the weekend, and thus the system just kind of gets stuck off the east coast by next weekend, the start of October. So at the moment, it seems like there's more uncertainty with the future of Invest 94 than there is with Humberto. But I will throw in that caveat that with two systems so close together, there is a lot that could still happen. And while we have seen a little bit more consistency in the forecasted track from Humberto and its future, I wouldn't set that in stone just because of the unknowns from that other Invest that is so close by. Now, the good news is the tropical outlook long range has nothing through the start of October in the Gulf or the Caribbean, or even the adjacent waters of Florida and over the Bahamas. It's this time of year, as we get into October, that we really start looking closer to home, because those are the systems that can fire up very quickly and they don't give you a whole lot of notice. Now, as we get into the second week of October, Climate Prediction Center placing a low end chance of some development, either the Bay of Campeche, Southern Gulf, Northwestern, Western Caribbean, giving a little bit more focus on the western side of the Central American gyre and a higher chance of development in the East Pacific. We'll say we have seen these low chances in the same area several times this season and nothing has happened. One thing that does look pretty certain is that we are going to wrap up September without any activity in the nearby waters. Again, with the Invest 94 and Humberto kind of taken away out of that equation, because neither of those look to be a threat for the Gulf. So looking at storms that have formed on or after October 1st, so basically all October and November storms, that I told our computer to find all of those storms that came within 100 miles of New Orleans. We still get some, even late in the season. However, look at the numbers. Tropical storms, we've had 6. 3 Category 1s, 3 Category 2s, and only 1 major hurricane that was a Category 3. That was that one caveat storm, Zeta, that we had in that crazy season where it was almost the week before Halloween, so late October. Typically, once we get to about October 15th, the threat of any major hurricanes is gone, and the threat of any kind of not as detrimental type storms starts to wane as well. The later into the season we get, the less likely we are to get threatened from the Gulf or from the tropics. And the good news is our 2 active systems right now nearby, Humberto and Invest 94, do not appear to be a threat for the Gulf at all. And hopefully we can kind of keep that trend going, as saying quiet in the Gulf through October. Once we get past the midpoint of the season, that is when we can breathe that sigh of relief. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin.